Um, she has to let him lead when he's learning how to. Because again, life is always going to be throwing situations and circumstances at you that, depending on how young you're getting married or your experience, you're going to be dealing with things that you've never dealt with before, and it's a learning experience. Now, what I think a woman should be able to see in the midst of all of that is, like, who is he talking to? How is he learning? Who's mentoring him? Who's around him to teach him something other than saying, the stuff like, "Oh man, get over it," or if he's talking to his wife and he goes to talk to a friend that says, "You know what? She don't know what she's talking about," and this and that, and drives wedges in between you, your wife, and your family. It's an ongoing learning process. It has to be something that you have to evolve. You have to continue to grow, and you're not going to always have the answers. I think a lot of the answers that we may have given tonight, in a lot of these circumstances and situations, are laced with all types of pressure. We've come with all these absolutes, right? But you know what? There's no man on this stage that's absolute. Everyone has stepped on a banana peel. Everybody has hit a pothole, and everyone has made a mistake. And the thing about it is, if we continue to put these types of pressures on ourselves, hey, we have to be the leader. Hey, we have to be able to do this. We have to be able to do that. And leaning back on the past subject, everybody will be crying sometime or another, whether it's within the relationship or it'll be a ruined relationship where people really have no understanding for what's really going on.
Do you always have to have your hands in something? If you're leading someone or leading your family or something, do you yourself have to always be present, have your hands into something in order to be actually leading? You know what I'm saying? I think
Give an
you
example.
can with the
Please,
apps.
please give an example of what you're talking about.
Like, for example, are you can you lead without being present? Like, can you delegate in a way where there is clear communication, there's integrity in the intent, right? And I think there's a linear process of communicating with someone, right? And that delegation allows you to lead without having to be physically present. I think sometimes when we talk about, leading, it feels like we have to be physically there at present at that moment. We can't be everywhere at once.
I think it's a nuance. I think it's a very nuanced subject. And I think that a true leader knows how to adjust. I think one of the biggest things in the midst of leadership that a lot of people dismiss and don't talk about enough is being dynamic. You have to be dynamic. You also have to be pliable, because if you're stiff and rigid all the time, you're going to lose somebody in that family. And how do I know? Because I did it. I did it. I was probably the most stiff, rigid person in the world. I was quoting every Bible scripture, and I was not showing grace to them. And of course, they're not going to show grace to me in my leadership. So even though I thought I was being a good leader, even delegating, even talking to people, it was still my attitude and the way that I was doing that. And I think that a lot of times that pressure comes upon us, right? And it's even whether we're delegating or not, but sometimes we have to show ourselves that grace so that the woman who is with us in our times where we lack leadership, because again, be honest, y'all not always going to be the greatest leaders all the time. You're just not. And when you allow yourself to think that and understand, and I ain't talking about be a punk all the time or be a simp all the time. I'm not saying that, but give yourself enough grace to know that you're going to F up. And then the woman that's with you needs to understand that too. And then that's the relationship that'll flourish.
All right. Let me go ahead and get to Sir Hill. What are your thoughts about it, sir? So I think the gentlemen on the stage have said a lot of great stuff, to which I agree. But here's my contention. I believe that women are so focused on the whole dynamic of leaders that they don't spend enough time talking about fellowship. I say this all the time because I hear it's just really easy to talk about, I need a man who can lead. I need a man who can take initiative. I need a man who can take control, and I can rest in my femininity. You can have a man who has all the skills, a man who has all the knowledge, a man who's been there, done that. If that woman is not trained on how to follow a man like that, she will be a headache to him, right? So I think it's important that while absolutely can a man lead, he absolutely has to learn. If a man stops growing, and I shout out to brother Eric for what he said, if we're not malleable to the changes of life and to your kids growing up, and there's different things that are happening, different phases and stages. If you're not learning, you're not growing, and you're likely breaking your family apart. So you must. But to me, the true issue now is not about can a man lead, while he's learning. It's can a woman follow and keep on learning. Like, can she learn how to follow her man when he changes, or when the way he sees something changes, without being a headache? It's okay sharing her opinions and her thoughts. But I think what we have is a generation of women who tell men that they need to lead, and then they believe that they have the definition of what a man should do to lead, and they have no history of having a successful relationship with a man who leads, right? So I think for this, absolutely, man, we can lead while we're learning, but I think every woman should sit back, be quiet, and quit trying to tell men how to lead. Get an apron, learn how to cook, and figure out how to follow, because women who figure out how to follow inspire their men to be even greater leaders.
Whoa, Sir Hill. Women fall into their role when the man is in his role, man. Women would actually like to be led if men were actually leaders today, bro. Men are not leaders today. Can I like do like Marvel spill now, because I got a really good one for this one. So like, can your man lead? Or when he's learning? Let's think about this for a second, guys. A man being a leader 10,000 years ago was being able to make a fire and go hunt. It was very simple. A guy at 18, 19, 20 years old could have already started his family and been a leader of that family, because the boundary to become that was just making a fire, building a home, going hunting. These are things that we were able to do at a very young age. Now to be a leader, a man that is a leader, we're talking every year there's more and more shit you need to learn to be that guy today, to have that caliber. So these guys that are like 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, and we're sitting there expecting them to be a leader to a woman that's 20 years old. Dude, there's so much more they need to learn. Men aren't going to become leaders now until they're 25 at the earliest, 30, 35. And then if you also add in hypergamy with women, oh man, it's not going to work. Like these women that are 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, they're having opportunities out the wazoo everywhere coming to them. There's no way you're going to look like a leader when you're 22, 23 years old, a year or two older than her, whenever she's comparing you to these guys that are fucking 5-10 years older than you, that she sees all over Instagram or all over her work or whatever it is, who are way bigger leaders than you already. So it's like we're sitting here trying to like put like a square peg in like a round hole. It's not going to work anymore. That shit worked a long time ago, but now how relationships work, and especially with my generation, I don't know, guys aren't going to be leaders until their 30s, because they're not going to learn enough to become a real fucking leader. And when they meet a girl when they're 30 and they're a real leader, she's going to completely fall in line and want to be led by him. There's no like convincing her of doing it. She's just going to naturally fall into it. And that would have happened a long time ago when life was simple as hell and there was just fires and hunting that needed to be done. And she was going to have that genuine desire for him because he's doing all those things. But it's not that simple anymore. It's way harder to make money. It's just not the same world that it used to be.